Howdy, everybody, and welcome to the TexAgs High School Football Show, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Academy has all your high school football road trip needs this season. Get the right gear for the long season with free curbside pickup today at Academy Sports and Outdoors. All right, what's up, everybody? Ryan Brauninger and Jason Howell back with you for the TexAgs High School Football Show for the final time this year. Want to thank again Academy Sports and Outdoors for sponsoring the show all season. It's been a great time. It's been what an incredible season. The most games I've ever covered. And it comes to an end as it does every year at AT&T Stadium. And what a fun event, Jason. It's something that we look forward to every year. It's hard because, right, it's the close of the season, but what a great few days in Arlington.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said that, this is it. I mean, yeah, it's always a sad time, but man, it really is the best time. It's so many great games, so many great teams, everybody laying it all on the line. The stadium, man, it gets packed and rowdy. You're looking at big time atmospheres, and a lot of these games are going to go down to the final possession. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time.
Let's do this because I do want to look at all of these matchups, right? And so as we're going through these previews, Jason, if we saw these teams play last week, I guess we will we'll stop and talk about them, right? But I do want to get to these playoffs. Let me pull them up real quick, and we will start at the small schools. We're gonna talk about the game if we know anything about some of these small school teams, and then we'll pick a winner. How about that?
Sounds good. Yeah.
And then, like I said, if you saw these teams play last week, or I saw them play last week, then we will talk about them. But we're going to start with the first 11-man game, which is going to take place on
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Albany against Mart, and I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot of dominant teams making their way to AT&T Stadium, but the Mart Panthers may be the top of that list.
Yeah, they're always a favorite or among them to make it there and to win state. And here they are again, AT&T. They're regular. They're not going to be frightened or nervous by the big time atmosphere. These guys, they know what it takes to win, and it's really, really hard to bet against Mart this time of year.
Well, and if we were drafting these teams that were playing all in Jerry World this week, and you had to at the top of the list confidence points like ESPN does with their bowl projections.
Yeah.
If you're going to put confidence points on a winner, Mart might be the number one pick of that kind of draft. They've had Albany's had a great season. Everybody that's made it to a state finals obviously had a legendary season. But this Mart team is rolling up people. I mean, they scored 41 last week against Burton.
Yeah.
Burton hadn't given up more than 7 points in 10 or 11 straight weeks, and Mart puts 41 on them.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with you there. Like I said, it's just not only are they great, are they a well-coached team, and like you said, potent, but they've been there before. They expect to win. They're going into this game, knowing what it takes to come out with the championship ring.
So it sounds like you and me are both picking Mart there in the 2A Division II state championship game. On Thursday morning, the 2A Division I state championship game between the Holly Bearcats and the Refugio Bobcats. And Holly got here last year, right? Yeah. And so maybe some of the newness or some of the wow factor of playing at AT&T Stadium has worn off, and they're going to need it to. They can't come in and be kind of dazzled by the atmosphere because Refugio is loaded, and they are extremely fast, and they're led by 2024 wide receiver Ernest Campbell, who's run in the 10-3 range, back-to-back state champion.
He's a real 2A
level in the 100 meters. And they've also got a sophomore running back, Jonathan King, who has had a fantastic year there. So I'm going to pick Refugio, but Holly's really, from what I understand, Holly's pretty big up front, physical up front. If they can shorten the game and make them play it kind of in a phone booth, that's what they want to do, and keep that Refugio speed on the sideline.
Yeah, and I'm with you on your pick there. Refugio, after topping Timpson in a man, talk about a slugfest with two great teams uh, beating Timpson 24-21. It's real hard to pick against them. They've knocked off Shiner. They've been through a gauntlet to get to AT&T. Holly coming off a big win last week. I want to say over Harmony
Yep.
out of East Texas, who's making a strong run themselves. So, but Refugio, that's where I'm headed in my prediction there.
The 3 o'clock game on Thursday, 3A Division II. Gunter Tigers against the Poth Pirates. And look, a lot of people will tell you that last week's semifinal between Gunter and Canadian was the state championship game in 3A Division II. Poth's going to have a little something to say about that, but Gunter's been everybody's pick in this division kind of from start to finish. Again, a return to the state finals for Gunter. Came up short last year to Franklin. And I think my money would go down on the Tigers this year to kind of, I don't know, like very contrasting styles. I've heard good things about Poth up front as well. But Gunter wants to play in space, and they've got a lot of really good athletes.
I'm not going to pretend like I know a whole lot about Poth, but I do know Gunter can spread it out and score in a hurry. And they we're talking about another team that's been there and done it. And I feel, repetitive, but it's an undefeated team, a lot of great athletes. Like you said, if they can get in space, they're going to be real tough to handle. And I'm going with Gunter.
Yep. 3A Division I, the nightcap there on Thursday. It's the Franklin Lions against the Brock Eagles. And Brock, a team, started winless through their non-district slate, but a really tough non-district slate that included a lot of teams in bigger classifications. I believe they started 0-4, and then they haven't lost since. And so Brock is a little different than what they've been in the past. I think they scored a lot of points. They got a history of making deep playoff runs with offense, but they're doing it a lot this year with their defense. And I don't know, Franklin is okay playing in a little box, and I think that kind of plays into what Brock does well defensively at the line of scrimmage. So this should be a fascinating game, the Brock run defense against the Franklin run offense.
Well, I got to actually see Brock a little bit last weekend. I just took a little trip with some friends, and we popped on over to Frisco, sat in the crowd and take in Malakoff and Brock. And I'll be honest, Brock took it to him. I had Malakoff as my favorite in that game, and they didn't flinch. Like you said, they dropped a few early on, but it's a lot like South Oak Cliff. They really went after it in non-district, and Brock's a school that nobody wants to play, so they have trouble finding those non-district matchups. And they have turned it on. They got their quarterback, man. He can sling it around a little bit too. So he threw with some accuracy. From
what I understand, they kind of ride the wave with him. Their offensive success depends on what kind of night he's having, and if he's on, they present some problems offensively.
Absolutely, definitely seems to be the way it is. But he was on last week, and if he carries that into AT&T, I think they give Franklin a run for their money. But I'm not picking against Franklin either.
I'm not picking against Bryson Washington. I'm not picking against Jaden Jackson. I'm not picking against Devin Hidrago. I mean, Franklin, for a 3A Division I school, the three kids I mentioned are all Power 5 football players. Jaden Jackson and Bryson Washington both have gone over 2,000 yards offensively. They made pretty easy work of Edna in the semifinal, and Edna was a team that on both lines of scrimmage was way bigger than Franklin. I mean, Edna up front on the offensive line for a 3A school was massive, and they only scored 13 points against the Franklin defense. I think Franklin did take some advantage of some some Edna mistakes last week. But you have to do that. If you're a championship team, that's what you do, is when other teams make mistakes, you capitalize. And so we got a good look at Bryson Washington in last year's state championship game. That's really kind of where he burst on the recruiting scene. I think Baylor got an enormous steal with this kid. Baylor always does such a good job with their small town school evals. Richard Reese there that they've got on campus from Belleville. They were one of the few schools that really pushed for him and got him. They did the same with Bryson Washington, and I think he's set to put on another show and Coach Mark Fannin and the Franklin Lions will be bringing another state championship back to Robertson County. All right, 4A Division II, things start to get a little juicy here, Jason. I'm interested in your thoughts on this game, right? Because 4A Division II, I think it's been as up in the air as any this year in terms of like who was going to play Carthage. It wasn't the fact that like Carthage was going to be here. We all had a pretty good idea about that.
And that that got close last week. Not gonna lie.
It did, and Glen Rose, I didn't know anything about, and I don't think a lot of people knew much about Glen Rose, but they pushed Carthage as much as anybody has in a while.
Yeah, they did. They gave them all they wanted, and maybe that's the push that Carthage needed to kind of shake out some cobwebs.
Well, I ain't picking against them. No, I'm not picking against Scott Surratt when he gets to AT&T Stadium.
No, I think he's got more rings than losses. Is that what they say? So yeah, it's gonna be hard. Love the Wimberley Texans and that program. They've done a great job all year, undefeated.
A wild one against Cuero last week.
And and talk about Cuero. You saw them against Silsbee. That is a physical team, and they will punch you in the face. And they can roll with anybody. And for Wimberley to do what they did there and come out with the win, that's nothing to just slough off. Wimberley can play some ball, but like you said, you can't bet against Carthage. You're tempting fate right there, and you got to stick with those Bulldogs.
That Carthage-Wimberley game is at 11 a.m. on Friday. The 3 o'clock game, the 4A Division I game, the China Springs Cougars taking on a little bit of a surprise in the Bernie Greyhounds. And I'm going to tell you what.
Unless you're Richard Zane, right?
Richard did pick Bernie to win the state championship. And while I'm not leaning toward, I'm going to pick China Spring because they've been the best team in that division from start to finish. But what Bernie did to Tyler Chapel Hill in the last round is not something that should be overlooked.
No.
I mean, that wasn't non-competitive. I mean, they blew the doors off a really talented Chapel Hill team. So I think Bernie may be the most slept-on team going to the state finals. Like, I don't think not enough people know enough about them to pick them over China Spring.
Mm-hmm.
But last week's result in the state semifinal, to do that to Tyler Chapel Hill, who's got plenty of Division I athletes on the team, I think that opened a lot of people's eyes.
Well, it should. But like you said, China Spring, when you talk about those 4A districts and what China Spring has gone through, regular season, non-district, and in the playoffs, their resume and who they beat state ranked. I think their only loss is to Stephenville and a last second, kind of barn burner on the road. So it's hard to pick against them, and I feel like we're picking chalk, and we did this last week. And I know I ended up getting roasted pretty badly in my picks. But China Spring.
Cash McCollum's had a great year.
Oh, they've got some players out there. Great team, great coaches, great program. Coach Bell moves on to Baylor, and they pick right back up with Coach Beatty. I mean, they're doing some great things out there, really excited about them and where they're headed. And I think that's another 4A championship this year.
I'm going to pick China Spring, but closer than the experts think. I think this could be a really good game. Upset watch would be kind of high on this one. I think Bernie's really going to push them. All right, 5A Division II. Friday night, AT&T Stadium at 7 o'clock. Operation 60,000, as it's been dubbed on Twitter by the South Oak Cliff coaching staff, and I believe the P&G Port Neches Groves Twitter. Their Port Neches Groves Twitter quote tweeted Coach Todd and said, let's do it. Let's do this 60,000 thing. So South Dallas will be heavily in the building on Friday night, and I do believe there's going to be quite the contingent that makes the drive up from the Golden Triangle as well. On the P&G side. If you'll remember, here's a little history lesson. Back to 1979 or 1980.
Oh, all right.
P&G's playing Plano in the state finals at the old Cowboy Stadium in Irving. That was the original state championship record for attendance. I believe just over 49,000 before they started moving it They moved all the games to one site, and
Uh-huh.
now they all play them at AT&T Stadium. So you can have a lot more than that because people will stay all day. But for a single game attendance record, I believe that still stands at over 49,000. So the entirety of the Golden Triangle will be emptying out and making their way up. But in terms of the game, look, PNG's here in a surprise run under first-year head coach Jeff Joseph. I think he should be Texas Coach of the Year in the entire state for what he's done in year one. Not even just year one at a new school, year one as a head coach.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Jason. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me more about SOC because I think this is going to be a real slugfest because I don't know that either team, SOC has really struggled offensively, and PNG is not really built to score a ton of points. They want to kind of run behind that massive offensive line and take the air out of the ball as well. So I don't know if there's an over-under set, but I'd take the under probably.
Yeah, and if you're getting in a slugfest with Dallas South Oak Cliff, I think you need to reevaluate your tactics there because South Oak Cliff, that defense, and they can slug it out with the best of them. Last week against Argyle, they were living in the backfield, and that was the game I was at. They pulled out the win 14-6, so it wasn't a high scoring affair. The week before, it was a 30-16 win over Melissa with 2 late touchdowns. And really, they've done it with a stout defense that really does a good job of setting up the offense, a great field position, and that running game. If it gets rolling for South Oak Cliff, you're in for a long night. They have that massive offensive front led by TCU commits, a pair of TCU commits on one side, and then you got 6'3", 270-pound twins on the other side, and they just, opening up run lanes for Texas A&M commit Javon Thomas and Danny Green, who's been having a great run, and don't forget Tedrick Williams. I mean, that guy doesn't get as much run as the others, but he's been a workhorse as well, and they've got a potent ground attack, and then they spice it up with a little flare out, with some passing to Wildman Collie, and really get it going. But that defense is where it's at for South Oak Cliff, and I think you're right. This is going to be a back and forth deal. Last week against Argyle, it was very much in question. They had limited Argyle to 2 field goals, but in the fourth quarter, it took a pound it down the throat kind of drive with Danny Green doing a lot of the heavy lifting and punching it in from a couple yards out for the score to make it a 14-6 game with about I want to say it was about 2-3 minutes left. So they can get it going. And I'm picking
I've
South
watched
Oak Cliff for this
yeah,
one.
I've watched the folks at Dave Campbell's Texas Football Tep and Step and all those people. They do a great job. One of the things I think they're missing on is they talked a lot about the battle between Sock's offensive line that you mentioned and PNG's defensive front, which is anchored by a sophomore nose guard and Jonathan Hernandez, who was off the charts good against that slot T offense of Liberty Hill last week. I mean, they limited Liberty Hill to 14 points, 13 points, whatever it was.
Wow.
That's a pretty good showing against that kind of style of offense. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I think people may be sleeping on is the size of PNG's offensive line. I think that's going to surprise a lot of people
Yeah.
whenever PNG comes out of the locker room for warmups on Friday night. They are enormous up front.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about from 2 tackles and Jansen Ware, who's got a handful of Power 5 and G5 offers, 6'4", 285, and then you go over to the other tackle, sophomore Jackson Christian, who's 6'5", 300 pounds, flat belly, and giant hands and feet. Like this kid's a real prospect now. Like he's a real Power 5 prospect at offensive tackle. But then even from guard to guard, Elizardo Pena, 6'3", 320 pounds. So, PNG they want to get behind those big guys and just kind of lean on you, and they
Mhm.
celebrate 4-yard games.
Yeah.
2024 athlete Shea Adams runs a lot of Wildcat. They line him up at receiver. He's a 6'4", kind of
Mhm.
long strider, good athlete with the ball in the air. Chance Prospery has been a fantastic receiver for them all year. One of the better, probably the best wideout in Southeast Texas if you exclude Draylon Miller
Mhm.
from the conversation. And then their quarterback, Cole Crippen, made some huge throws last week against Liberty Hill. It's going to take PNG's best performance of the year
Yeah.
to beat South Oak Cliff, but you know what they're going to draw confidence from? They beat Fort Bend Marshall, who
Yeah.
had a ton of Division I talent and a ton of speed on the field. So I don't know how they're going to get it done or what their pathway is, especially through the air when you've got to try to throw against Malik Muhammad and all those
Yeah.
guys on the sock defense. I mean, that's a really tall task. My heart is saying pick the Golden Triangle boys, but my head is saying I don't think they've got enough to overcome South Oak Cliff.
I'm right there with you, man.
All right,
Well done.
5A Division One, the College Station Cougars. This is at 3 o'clock, or excuse me, this is 11 a.m. on Saturday. We moved to the
Yeah.
final day of the season now. The College Station Cougars taking on the Aledo Bearcats, a rematch of the 2017 5A Division II state final, in which Aledo was heavily favored in that game. And College Station, as a relatively new program, nobody knew anything about. That day, they got an enormous outing from Marquez Perez, and they lifted the state championship trophy in an upset win over Coach Buchanan and the Bearcats. So I don't think College Station will be sneaking up on Aledo this time around. I don't know much about Aledo. All I know is that their outlook on their season's kind of changed since Hoss Haney has taken over at quarterback.
Yeah, and he's a dual threat quarterback. He can sling it around, really accurate, and he can hurt you with his legs. He was a standout against Denton Ryan. Had a really, I want to say it was about a 65, 70-yard touchdown run against that Denton Ryan defense, and definitely turned a few heads as he scooted down the sideline there. But he can spin the ball really well. And they've got some receivers out there that can catch. They've got a nice little ground attack. Davon Keys plays linebacker and running back for him. He had a nice touchdown run against Longview, the deciding touchdown in that close game, a 17-14 win last weekend in Kincaid. My goodness, Aledo, they hit some road bumps in non-district as well, and to see them come through and come through a tough district, and then that region that they had to run through to get to the state championship game, it says a lot. I'll
I
be
think
honest, I
these
picked against them last week against Longview. And they went toe to toe there, suffered the hour and a half long lightning delay with 56 seconds left in the game to pull
Mhm.
out the win.
Well, and I think these are two teams where the sum is greater than the individual
Yeah,
parts, right? Because
yeah,
College Station is very similar to Aledo. Their season kind of took off with the emergence of junior quarterback Arrington Maiden once he settled into that role.
hmm,
College Station is not the same team that lost in a blowout fashion to Lucas Lovejoy in week 1 of the season. Like,
yeah,
as this new coaching staff has kind of found their footing and as Arrington Maiden's gotten comfortable, they've gotten better and better each week and had a blowout win over Corpus Christi Vets in the semifinal. And that was coming off the heels of a highly emotional win at the
yeah,
last second over Smithson Valley in the quarterfinals. And so they've shown a bounce back capability mentally to not have that letdown. And their sophomore running back Aiden Martinez Brown has answered the bell whenever you looked at Marquise Collins got hurt. What's College Station going to do on
yeah,
offense, especially on the ground game? He stepped up in a big way. You had Nate Palmer leave and go to Decatur.
hmm,
That's something else that I think has been neglected when you listen to a lot of people talk this week about what this College Station team has done. Yeah, Marquise Collins got hurt, but you thought maybe Nate Palmer would be there as
hmm,
the workhorse, the milk cow. They moved to Decatur, and so Aiden Martinez Brown stepped up in a huge role. I think they've got a Power 5 player in sophomore tight end Jackson Verdugo. Makes huge plays down the field, very much in that Houston Thomas role,
hmm,
that kind of flex tight end that they'll move motion in and get closer to the line of scrimmage. But again, College Station, it's about the team. It's about the sum of the parts rather than the individual. I think Alito's the more talented team here, right? And I think they've definitely got a chip on their shoulder now because Coach Buchanan will be using that 2017 game as, hey, like we haven't done anything yet. Like we owe these guys from 5 years ago. Again, it's a head and the heart thing. My heart, I mean, I can basically look out my window right here and see College Station High School.
Yeah.
I can hear the band practicing after school. So my heart is picking the Cougars. My head is wanting to pick Alito.
And this is a team in Alito that last year they saw their dreams dashed by SOC. So this is a team that's used to getting to the state championship game, and to see their season end earlier than that was a failure. And that's unacceptable. And Alito went right back to work. Coach Buck, they're talking about him, being Texas Coach of the Year type season with what he's done. 100% agree with you. This is a very, very much a team effort. I'll be honest, this is a toss up for me. I don't know. I'd probably go with I'll pick Alito just because I've had Longview picked to win state coming into the playoffs, and they knocked them out, in impressive fashion. Yeah. So it's gonna be a fun one.
6A Division II there on Saturday afternoon. This is a matchup that I think when we were heading into the semifinals, neither one of us thought that this would be the matchup, right? I mean, you had DeSoto taking down what everybody said Denton Guyer was the best, maybe the best team in the state of Texas, regardless of classification. I said it on multiple occasions. Yeah. And DeSoto not only won the game, they won it pretty convincingly, like no problem. Kept kind of a 2-score advantage for the majority of that. And then what does Austin Vandergrift do? They come out, and I would have picked Katy by multiple scores in that game.
Yeah.
They used 2 trick plays to get in the end zone. Katy drives down and ties it with just over a minute left, and then Vandergrift gets the ball back and is able to get back into field goal range and hit one as time expires. Their quarterback, Brady Buchanan, I believe, is a Baylor baseball commit who has just been sensational. They've got a ton of speed. They really challenged Katy in the secondary last week. So I'm going to pick DeSoto here because I'm more familiar with the kind of talent that they've got. But don't sleep on Austin Vandergrift, man. That offensive line has got 2 Power 5 elite players on it. And I'm betting that they're going to try to lean on those guys. And much like P&G would probably try to do in that 5A Division II game, shorten it, take the air out of the ball, limit the possessions for that highly powered DeSoto offense, and see what it looks like in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, as you heard, the Dogs are kind of they're chiming in with their picks, and I'll be honest, I'm right there with you. I did not have DeSoto in this final. Guyer has been at the top of my list as far as dominating teams in 6A, and they haven't disappointed up until last week. And DeSoto came in with a chip on their shoulder, ready to show, hey, we're the DeSoto freaking Eagles, and we're here to kick some butt. And they did. They stepped out early and took control of that game. Like you said, you broke it down pretty well there with Austin Vandergrift, but I got to stick with my Dallas crew. I didn't think they were going to be there, but the DeSoto Eagles, give me those Eagles and DJ Bailey and DeAndre Ryden, who had 224 yards on 30 carries last week against Guyer.
Devon A-Chain type performance.
I mean, that's a big old boy. He may be bigger than A-Chain right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's but he had a great showing last week, 2 touchdowns, and even on a night when Jonte Cook, I want to say, had 58 yards on two receptions, really grounded out. And I look for the Tiger to get loose, I guess, in AT&T. So
we're both going with DeSoto. And now the final game, round 4. Of North Shore and Duncanville, 7 o'clock on Saturday night to wrap up the Texas high school football season. Listen, man, I watched North Shore and Austin Westlake last week. And going into the game, I would have picked Austin Westlake.
Mm-hmm.
Their front 7, the way their defense has played, has been as good as anybody in the state of Texas, bar none, in terms of defense.
Yeah.
touchdown Dave, don't care. And the way North Shore is rolling on offense and really playing a sound brand of fundamental defensive football, they're
Yeah.
outstanding in the secondary, led by Jacoby Davis and Javen Anderson and Devin Sanchez. They're really good at linebacker behind Dylan Dixon. Senior defensive tackle Elijah Fields has had a fantastic season. Look, they play great team defense. And then,
Yeah.
like, what does it say about a program that when you have last year's state offensive MVP of the state championship game, I should say, and Caleb Bailey blows his knee out, and I believe in like week 4 or 5. David Amador comes in, has never played quarterback before. It takes him all of about one drive to figure out how to do that, right? And you go back to the state championship game by beating Austin Westlake, ending their 54-game winning streak, and doing it in convincing fashion. Like in the second half, Jason, North Shore just kept making plays and pulling away, highlighted by just an unreal punt return by Evan Jackson. I don't know if you saw video of that.
Yeah.
What a sensational play that was. And then David Amador puts the nail in the coffin on like a little an RPO, and he shakes off Texas commit Colton Vosick, who he did multiple times in the game. And me and you both think Colton Vosick's going to be an outstanding player at the next level. Amador runs through a tackle and then out sprints the Austin Westlake defense to the corner of the end zone to drive the nail home and send them back to AT&T Stadium. Look, I'm picking the game. I'm not betting against North Shore against Duncanville until Duncanville proves that they can beat them.
I agree with that assessment there, but I'm gonna go ahead. I'm picking with my heart on this one. I got to go with Reggie Samples. Coach Samples has been to the state championship game. Was it 4 or 5 times now? And he's come away empty-handed each time. And I got to think he's getting down to his last few times. So I'm not sure if we'll see this opportunity again. And I'm picking Duncanville here. Their offense has gotten more diversified. They really put it on a tough Prosper team last week. Caden Durham has been absolutely unreal all season long. And last week, 23 carries for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. He finds those creases in the opposing defense, and he can get gone in a hurry. And if he gets an inch, he can. I can see him running away from even the fastest North Shore defense. It's going to be a knockdown drag out with 2 very talented teams. I think it's going to come down to the final few, and I think I'm picking with my heart here. I'm going with Duncanville. I think they get over the North Shore curse.
I have a coach reach out to me that has experience with both of these clubs this year and has seen them both up close in person. And I asked him, I said, what do you think is going to happen in that title game? He said North Shore by 17 to 20 points. That's how impressed he was with the Mustangs when he saw them and what they were able to do. Now,
that's capable of happening. I'm not saying that's not.
I don't think it'll be that. I don't think that the margin would be like that.
I mean,
but man, like North Shore, they're just complete, and they just keep finding a way to win. And if North Shore beats Duncanville for the 4th time in a row, like there may be like a little voodoo in the minds of those guys in South Dallas. Like, how do we get over this hump? So I think there's certainly a lot of pressure on Coach Samples to win this one.
Well, I mean, I'm not worried about pressure and Samples, but I think there's definitely some mind games they got to get over. They got to get over that mental hurdle, and they see that North Shore team across the way, and I don't think they would want it any other way. I think the Samples isn't afraid, and Duncanville's not afraid of anyone. And if they're going to win one, why not beat North Shore?
Yeah, I mean, that would be getting the monkey off their back and finally winning the state championship and then doing it over a team that's given you so many problems in the past. But those are our picks. Went through all the games. Jason, I will see you here in a couple of days.
Yes,
And
sir.
we will be perched high atop AT&T Stadium to close the Texas high school football season. We thank you guys so much for tuning in. As I said to start the show, thanks to Academy for sponsoring the show all year. And if you are a subscriber to TexAgs, you'll be seeing a lot more of Jason and myself as we get closer to National Signing Day and into the spring for spring ball and camps and all that kind of stuff. For Jason Howell, I'm Ryan Brauninger. Thanks for tuning in to the TexAgs High School Football Show.